If I was starting public domain publishing from scratch today, I might look at Home Education by Charlotte Mason and move straight past it. Because when I checked Project Gutenberg, it had just over 1,000 downloads in the previous 30 days. Now, that is not nothing, but compared with the major classics pulling tens of thousands of downloads, it does not exactly look like an obvious winner either. Then I found a paperback edition of Home Education on KDP, and when I checked, it was sitting at roughly 35,000 in the entire bookstore. Those two numbers do not seem to belong together. One source shows moderate interest in a free copy. The other suggests people are regularly paying for a physical edition. So this test is slightly different. I do not just want to know whether the book has demand. I want to know what the Amazon publisher noticed that the Gutenberg number does not immediately reveal. And then we can answer the real question, would I publish Home Education by Charlotte Mason as my first public domain book? Let us find out. The first thing we need to understand about Home Education by Charlotte Mason is what the Gutenberg number actually measures. The figure shown on Project Gutenberg is not the lifetime total. It represents downloads from the previous 30 days. When I checked, that worked out to roughly 35 free downloads each day. So there is interest here, but it still does not look like one of those enormous Gutenberg titles that immediately jumps off the screen. The mistake would be assuming that free digital downloads represent the entire market, because Home Education by Charlotte Mason is not just something people casually read once. It is a detailed educational book for parents and teachers. The paperback is over 400 pages, and it is the first volume in a 6-volume education series. Someone studying Charlotte Mason's educational methods may not want a free digital file. They may want a physical reference they can keep, underline, revisit, and place beside the other books in the series. Gutenberg is showing us activity around a free file. The Amazon listing may be showing us an entirely different kind of buyer. Now, let us look at the strongest Amazon clue for Home Education by Charlotte Mason. When I checked the paperback, its overall bestsellers rank was sitting at 35,571 in books. Amazon does not publicly tell us exactly how many copies that represents, and bestsellers rank moves constantly, so we cannot treat it like an exact sales report, but we can estimate it. Keeping that estimate conservative, a paperback around this position could reasonably be selling somewhere around 2 to 3 copies per day, potentially around 60 to 90 copies in a month, provided the rank remains somewhere near this level. That is not some enormous overnight success, but it does not need to be. Imagine building a catalog containing several books quietly producing sales at that rate. And remember, Home Education by Charlotte Mason is only the first book in a 6-volume series. A title producing a modest but consistent number of sales could become a very worthwhile addition to a larger public domain catalog. So the Amazon rank is revealing something the Gutenberg number did not make immediately obvious, that there is a paying audience here. Now, we need to understand why they are buying this particular edition. The categories begin to explain why Home Education by Charlotte Mason is selling. When I checked, the edition was ranked number 134 in children and teens Christian education, number 151 in Christian homeschooling, and number 207 in homeschooling books. Those are very specific categories. The book is not being presented as just another old educational text. It is sitting directly in front of parents and educators who already understand the Charlotte Mason name and are actively looking for homeschooling material. Then look at the cover. It is restrained, traditional. The title and author are clear, and the entire design has the feeling that speaks to the mother demographic, not just a generic old-looking cover. It does not need to scream for attention. It needs to look credible beside the other books that this particular buyer already trusts. The categories and the cover are doing the same job. They are both signaling who this book is for. Project Gutenberg shows how many people downloaded the text. Amazon shows what can happen when the physical edition is placed directly in front of the right community. Now, the description for this edition of Home Education by Charlotte Mason is interesting for a completely different reason, because there is barely a description at all. It is essentially one sentence saying that the Charlotte Mason education series has been carefully transcribed and formatted in the layout of the original texts. Normally, we use a much more deliberate description structure. We think about keyword density, buyer intent, positioning, readability, and how each section leads the customer towards the book. This listing does almost none of that. But look at the words it does use: carefully transcribed, original series, original layout. Those words may be addressing the one concern this particular buyer actually has. They want Charlotte Mason's work, not someone's heavily rewritten version of it. There are also hundreds of reviews shown on the listing, but with public domain books, reviews can be credited to books instantly upon publication. That is one of the hidden perks in public domain publishing. So that number may have arrived in a way most beginners do not realize exists. The stronger evidence is still the sales rank. The next check for home education by Charlotte Mason is the legal status and the product itself. Project Gutenberg lists the original work as public domain in the United States. Charlotte Mason died in 1923, so this does not present the same obvious territory problem we found with Thornton Wilder. See our last series for that overview. So the more interesting question is differentiation, because the buyer for home education by Charlotte Mason appears to value originality. That means I would be very careful about adding too much differentiation. I could add an author bio, improve the reader experience with minimal original images, add a restrained historical introduction, create a practical index, make the volume consistent with the rest of the 6-book series, but I would not try to transform Charlotte Mason's book into a completely different modern product. That is the difficult line with public domain differentiation. You need to add enough genuine value to produce a useful, properly positioned edition, but not so much that the person searching for the original work no longer recognizes what you have created. This edition appears to understand that. Its main promise is not that the book has been reinvented. Its promise is that the original has been presented properly. Now, would I publish Home Education by Charlotte Mason as my first public domain book if I were starting again today? My verdict is no, not as my first book. But this is not a book I would reject. The Amazon evidence suggests there is a real paying audience here. The edition is positioned inside very specific homeschooling and Christian education categories, and the cover speaks directly to that audience. The minimal description emphasizes originality, and the restrained differentiation matches what the buyer appears to want. But that is also why I would not choose Home Education by Charlotte Mason as my first project. A beginner could easily miss the niche, choose the wrong categories, over-modernize the text, misread the reviews, or copy the one-sentence description without understanding everything else supporting the listing. With more experience, though, this could be a winner. When a book produces even a modest number of consistent daily sales, it could become a valuable part of a growing public domain catalog, especially when it leads into a 6-volume series. So my verdict is not the first book, but potentially a very smart later book.